Right, let's move on now. Now, here's the thing. I will say, I actually told him this before the episode, so I'll reiterate for people who don't know. Technically, I'm the only one who knows every person's points. Otherwise, each person just knows their own points, and we all find out now as they reveal them. So Maui doesn't know what Huxley's points are, and vice versa, right? But I actually did even tell Huxley what he has picked as his bad point here, because I'm pretty sure he did it intentionally, like tongue-in-cheek, as you're about to see. And if he delivers it correctly, it's actually fucking hilarious. So come on, what is your bad point in Counter-Strike in general at the moment? What would you say, Huxley?
Well, I feel like it's way too easy to actually get to a major nowadays.
That's good. You got Mouse Snake. You got to give it up for that. That's actually good. Okay. He's actually just said the problem is it's too easy to get to a major now. From the in-game leader of Copenhagen Flames over the last 2 minutes. I'm just saying. You know, they might have fucking dusted off a few RMRs. That's all I'm saying. They might have Swiss System 3-0'd a few. You know.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
So in what sense then? In what sense do you think? Obviously, that's like slightly jokey, but. By the way, it's a general point though. In what sense though do you think it's too easy? Like, what should be harder, or what makes it too easy? What's not good about the format, maybe, or the scene or something?
Well, I like in every format and whatever you do, you can obviously get an easy way in. Like the second major we qualified to was, I would say we got pretty lucky, right? Because we were already at the RMR, so we had to play like only that to get to the actual major, and we had to play Sprout with a coach as stated in the first best of one. Then we had to play Sinners, even though they actually ended up doing pretty well and were close to qualifying. I still feel like that's not a team you play against to go to a major, right? If you get what I mean. And then, okay, we had one legit best of 3 against NIP. That was still in like a weird period.
I think they just signed Brolan, right?
Yeah, they are switching out all the time and stuff like that. So I get why they maybe were not on top, and that was it. And then we were at the major, and I feel like, well, if I look back at like years before that, no, actually, obviously now the system is 24 spots, right? Nobody has a spot for sure, and that's just a lot of spots to give to everybody to compete for. And if people remember, like, I'm an old fuck, so obviously I remember, but back in the days it was like 16 teams, and 8 of those spots were already taken from the major before that. So there were 8 spots to play for. Now there's 24. And yeah, I don't know if the quality of teams you had to beat were better at the time as well or something, but I just feel like now, yeah, I don't know. It just feels way easier than before. Like the open qualifier was scary as fuck before. Now you could just kind of. I don't know if you can breeze through it, because I actually haven't been through it for some time now. But yeah, there's just so many spots to play for now. So I would like to see. Well, I like the fact that nobody has a spot from the previous major, because I felt like that was bullshit, because people fell off and rushed the changes and stuff like that. But at least like make it to 16 spots then, if you want to like make an open field for everyone to join. Then yeah, that's what I would like to see.
Well, I do like this point in that I have a hard time really accepting that the top 24 teams should be at a major also, because that whole like changing the challengers stage from the major closed qualifier, which is what it used to be. I thought that was a move that was, in a way, it's good for the scene, and it's good for just giving more teams incentives to be in Counter-Strike, because now those 8 teams that were on the fringe of making the major get stickers, and everybody knows how much sticker money is important for the survival of a lot of these organizations. And kind of contrasting it or comparing it to, like, for example, like a Rainbow Six or a Rocket League scene where they have all these in-game incentive items to be a competitive team. So you're gonna bolster the earnings of an org and the players in it. With that, I kind of like that side of it. I like that. I think teams should get kickbacks from Valve in similar fashion to this, actually more often, so that there's more long-term and bigger investments in the space. But I think that when I look at the teams, it's like, for example, the teams like Eternal Fire and IHC and 9Z, it's like these teams were at the major, and it's just it's just kind of strange, because they seem like you just look at some of those old classic majors, like you look at like a Cologne 2016, and you look at the top 16 teams, and it's like everyone there looked fucking legit. Everybody kind of like is sort of a historic team in a lot of ways. Like you don't look at any of those rosters and you're like, oh, how these guys sneak in, but you kind of can now with the majors top 24.
Yeah, I mean, the problem I have is I do think a lot of it, unfortunately, comes down to like Swiss system, basically. Because if you notice, I'm not even talking just about major qualifiers. Think of all the Swiss systems you've ever seen in your life in a tournament. Was there ever one where one of the 3-0 teams wasn't like a, who? How are they 3-0? Like, dude, every time. Every time there'll be like a tournament favourite 3-2, just sneak out on third map of the last one, and there'll be a 3-0 team like, how? But then you suddenly, you know how, because you look at the fucking Swiss system, who they played, and you were like, right. So what happened was you had the perfect storm of shit. You had two bad teams got drawn against each other initially, and then a loser lost, and then there was an upset, and then two losers, and then you end up in the scenario where you play a game against someone that should be good, and it's a bad team, right? The reason why I bring that up is because Swiss system in general seems to throw up these weird, like, top teams. And then secondly, this particular major, Huxley, I thought was the worst, because whoever's idea that was to make two different RMRs, dude, whoever seeded that, like, listen, in the modern day, seeding's usually pretty good. That was terrible. Like, again, no diss to you, but your RMR was a fucking joke compared to the other one, mate. Like, if you go look at the names, like, dude, their RMR looks like the major. Yours is like, this is to get into the mid. Like, that's because I think of some of the teams that like barely made it from the other one, and like, mate, they must have been looking at yours. I'm surprised more teams didn't complain. Like, I thought there would be a lot more complaining when I saw like the difference of the names on the two RMRs. I thought your RMR looked a lot weaker, even if some of the teams were good, you know.
Behind the scenes, there was a lot of complaints.
There was, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, our group was full Disneyland. I don't know what.
Yeah, it was wild.
What happened there? But yeah, we were obviously just happy, and we're like, well, what is there to say? Like we just beat whoever's in front of us, right?
And I also think as well, this is another flaw. They've done an even stupider thing, in my opinion, with majors, because as bad as one Swiss system can be, they're like stacking the problems of the Swiss system. Because what they do is they have an RMR, but remember, Maui Snake, the RMR isn't you've just qualified, congrats, see you at the major. It's like, oh no, if you went 3-0, you qualified, and with this seed here. So we're now seeding off that dodgy RMR. So we do a dodgy RMR, give us bullshit results, and then we seed off that. And that's how, by the way, at the major you get results where it's like two nobodies playing the decider match, but then like G2 and Vitality play or something. And you're like, what? Like, how? It's same thing, because you're like, now you're taking the flaws and you're like magnifying them, essentially. You're almost like multiplying the flaws. So as much as like, I will say I don't necessarily have perfect solutions to this, except for go back to some of the things we did in the past. And the problem I think with this topic as well is this. I don't think the way we did it in the past was the best. Like as you were saying there, Huxley, where half the spots came from like a legend spot. Well, there were also tons of majors where, you know, a legendary team wasn't actually that good at the next major. Maybe like the two best players left, or, you know, they fucking just got way worse as a team. So I have to say, sadly, in my opinion, the answer was always obvious. It's just Valve's never going to do this, because Valve doesn't acknowledge any seeding that's independent of their major system. Because the problem is, to me, it's obvious. You do it like tennis or something, mate. For the major, you just go and you get like, take the HLTV top 10. You don't have to agree with it. Just generally pretty good. Take the top 10 teams from HLTV top 10 2 weeks before the major. Congrats, you're in the major, or a month before, or whatever. You have to have some time for the RMR, obviously. Say a month before, right? You 10, you get invited. There you go. Now, however many other spots, could be 12, could be 6, could be 8. They're the ones you play for at the qualifier. Like, I'd be fine with something like that. Because the other problem I have with this is the fact that everyone competes for the spots. So, like, to me, it's absurd where you have, like, Na'Vi or FaZe Clan that, like, beating everyone, winning every tournament. But then they have to go to the RMR, like Billy No Balls from fucking over here, and play the same match, like, hope I make it. Like, what is this garbage? Like, do you know how bad real sports would be if, like, everyone had to qualify from the same position? Like, Real Madrid just won the Champions League. They have to start, like, at the bottom of like an open qualifier and play, like, fucking teams from nowhere in Greece. Like, if people don't know, every now and then those teams would lose and it just ruin the whole tournament for everyone. Like, we're allowing that in CSGO now. Like, we're lucky it's never happened. But mark my words, if they keep doing this system, there's going to be a major one day where, like, the number one team just won't even qualify. They'll just have, like, a one RMR, it'll fuck up, or someone will get ill. Think about that. What if you just got COVID or something, like, one day before the RMR? Like, that'll happen one day. say, and sadly it'll only be when it happens that people react, because if you notice, people don't actually look at like the way the system works, they just respond to the outcome. So if the outcome's big enough, like if Simple doesn't make it, then everyone will complain and go, see, oh yeah, I agree, Thorin, now actually RMRs are bad. But the joke is, if Simple made it and some bombfuck team didn't make it, they wouldn't care, would they? They'd be like, who cares? If you're good, you make it anyway. Because by the way, Mousestick, you will never escape that logic trap. The circular logic trap is the favourite of CSGO fans, which goes like, but the winner was the best, therefore if you didn't win, you weren't the best, therefore there can't be a problem with the system because the winner is the best. It's like, you've beat me there, mate. I can't escape that. You've created a perfectly circular labyrinth of logic. There's not even any way in. So how the fuck can I get out? So, you know what I mean? Like, that's nothing. That's nothing at that point, guys.
What people don't recognize with these kind of systems is that they're just too high variance. That's basically the big problem with them. Like to seed off of it is so dumb too. I mean, the legend status thing off of the RMR is atrocious. Like I think. I've kind of moved back and forth on this opinion, but I basically think that if you made playoffs of the last major, the core of your roster should hold a spot to at least get into like the legend stage or something like that of the next major.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Either top 8 or top 4. I've heard both. I've heard arguments for both. I've talked to Sponge about this a little bit, and I think that top 4 is where it's like, okay, those are the elite teams, and it kind of, in a way, ensures a little bit more roster stability too, because like we've seen that in the past where old majors, what you would get if you made it to like top what was it, like remember when like Cloud9 just kept like some players and they threw on Zelsis or some shit just because they had the roster slot essentially. I don't always love it because it's like that team shouldn't even have, like, I forgot how that all broke down, but like, Was that London, actually? It was.
I assume it would be. It'd be after Boston Major when Stewie and Tarek are gone.
Yeah. So at London, it can be a little bit weird if it's just like 3 players. But if it's 4 players plus top 4 from the last major, I kind of feel like you should retain a spot.
You notice you've also made another point as well that didn't used to exist. Because Valve made that stupid rule where you can add someone as the coach but then play them in the game. Yeah, that just allowed teams to like cheat the spot, as you're saying. Like, because you're right, Cloud9 was the one who did it with the Zelsis guy. You're right. They pretended he was the coach, but they were just playing him the whole time because they were never going to play, like, I think it was like Flusher or someone they still had listed that was never going to be the player, you know. Yeah,
right. Yeah, like I it needs some tinkering with, but I don't think that you should be seeing Navi in essentially an open qualifier type of format, because it also kind of ruins the air of like mystique and prestige, and like basically when you give all these younger teams cracks at Navi over and over and over again, eventually they will beat Navi. And
exactly.
I don't think, and I just, that's just like, one day they're gonna have an off day, and that's just like it's just gonna suck.
Close like this time or last time or something, where with the whole thing with the what were they called? Like the guys who everybody thought cheated or something.
Akuma. The ones from the CIS qualifier.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see, like stuff like that can happen as well, right? And
they
can't figure out like what's going on. Then obviously, it's not easy to beat people who cheat in some way.
No, of
course. That's what actually happened, right?
Right.
But I definitely feel like there should be some solution to all of this. Like, if it is that the finalists get a legend spot for the next one, and then the semi-finalist gets I don't know, maybe the challenger spot, and then the rest of the
Here's the thing as well.
Get an Arma or something, I don't know.
I also agree with you as well. It's not just the system, it's the fact that, as you say, you can also just get lucky. Like, as you say, in your RMR, you played Sprout with, by the way, Sprout isn't even that good anyway, but Sprout with a fucking manager, then you played Sinners, and then you played the BL3 against Nip, but Nip just had a brand new player added. Like, here's the difference, right? I always said this back in the day. The reason I used to love when they actually added that first stage, which is now the new challenger stage, which, as Maui says, used to just be called the closed LAN qualifier for the major. The reason I used to think that was brilliant was it removes all those discussions of like, is this region fucking overrated or whatever. Like, I always give the example of Sponge's team and the old Brazilians. Like, when they went to that LAN qualifier in 2015 and they just beat like real teams from Europe, then we had to just all go, fair play, you deserve to be there. So same thing, right? Obviously everyone was actually criticising Copenhagen Flames coming into this major because they were like, wow, they fluked another major. But here's the difference. If in that RMR you'd beaten Nip, but you'd also beaten like Ents and then say like Astralis, dude, no one would complain then. Like, at that point you've just beaten the teams you should be in the major if you beat those teams. But your problem is that's the shitty thing. For all we know, maybe your team was in great form and you would have won those games, but you'll never get the credit now because you got the easier draw, so now everyone will assume it was a fluke, right?
Yeah,
Actually ruins your story as well.
That's the most annoying part. That I feel like,
for sure.
I actually felt like we were in pretty good shape and we would
do
the whole thing all over again, because I felt like the first run was actually very legit, right? Even though it was a lot of best of ones, we still beat a lot of good teams like G2, Big, all those guys before, like even in the group, right? Then this time around, it was just like, okay, we have a 3-0 again after beating Sprout, Sinners, and NIP, right? Then we had a 2-0 chance again where we had like Spirit and we fucked that up, right?
Okay.
And then we had to play against, I think, Fallen and the guys to actually qualify for the arena. And I don't know, like it just didn't feel like, with respect for all the teams that we played against, it just didn't feel like a major run to an arena, right?
I mean, I'll just say, when you say like the first major run was legit, like the PGL Stockholm one, the only thing is though, because technically so many of the good results did take place in that one room where you were all locked in, I just assumed it was like one of those Hollywood movies where like they do a really elaborate like heist and that you guys weren't actually playing and that it was just like camera footage of you playing, and really it was like a really good team was just playing in there and just tearing everyone up online, like probably Navi or something, right? You know.
Yeah,
could be. I can't technically know that. Just listen. Anyone could put that footage up in the movie. They'd have that footage looping, and it's, you know, the security guard would be like, "Wait a minute, that cat's been passed twice." Like, and that's when he'd go and find the wire cut. You know, like all I'm saying is, it'd be a great movie.
Yeah, true. But I guess like the whole hotel room meme that pisses me off so much. Like,
of course, yeah, I know.
Can we just get some credit for actually beating these guys?
Do you know the other thing as well? I'll just tell you straight up. The other real reason I think you don't get credit is because unfortunately, like the guy whose stats were the best at that tournament was Roy, and everyone was like, "But wasn't he like supposed to be the worst player in that Mad Lions team?" Yeah. So even though like I get like it's a different team, different setup, like that also just didn't. That was like upside down day to everyone, because everyone kept saying he was supposed to like 1.17 rating. Like, that's the same guy, isn't he? Like 28 years old. What the fuck? Because that part just made no sense to anyone's brain, unfortunately.
Nah.
He was playing great though, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, Yavi also popped off. I remember like the first few games he was actually insane as well. Want
to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.